Okay, our topic for today is what's normal? Question mark. That's what I'd like to talk about. What's normal? We start off with a mood plane here, and let's put normal right here for now. And I'm going to put a big question mark at normal. Now, for those of us that are considering whether we're chemically dependent or alcoholic, I think it's important to note that what happens when we use. And it's impossible, of course, when we use any chemical for it not to change our mood. It's going to have some kind of an effect on our mood. And if this is high, or over here, euphoria, and down here we've got the other end of the scale, low, a low mood or depression. Let's say this is our mood plane, and when we use, let's say alcohol here, we change our mood toward the high. Now, it depends. We all have our own stories, and it affects us a little differently and so forth. But I recall for me, at least, that I started changing my mood, and it felt good to get high. And it's kind of like a mosquito bite. You know, if you start itching it, it feels so good to itch it, doesn't it? And we keep itching it and itching it and itching it, right? And then what happens? It bleeds. Bleeds. Somebody comes along and says, hey, you're itching the mosquito bite, it's bleeding. Look what you're doing to yourself. You say, oh, no, that's all right. It's okay. And we're doing all this stuff, compromising our values and doing all kinds of other stuff, and it's kind of like laying out and getting sunburned, and somebody comes along and says, hey, you're getting sunburned. Look at you. What do you say? No, I'm all right. I feel. When do you feel the pain about getting sunburned? That night or the next day? The pain lags behind the pleasure, doesn't it? Okay, so it's normal to change our moods to get up here, and if a little bit is good, like I said, I could relate to having one drink as long as it's a 55-gallon drum and a canoe paddle to mix it with. If a little bit's good, why not do a lot? Anything worth doing is worth doing to excess, isn't it? So it feels so good. Probably one of the best descriptions of chemical dependency or alcoholism I ever heard came from a woman about 70 years old, and it was in a group, and she said, I keep a bottle under my sink. And somebody said, why would you do that? Why would you have a bottle under? You're sober, right? Yes, but I keep the bottle under my sink for emergencies. Think about it. For emergency. Was the emergency to put out a fire or something? What was the emergency? Why would she do that? What kind of emergency would she be having that she would have a bottle under her sink? Anybody. Why do it? An emotional emergency, right? Some kind of, why you need to medicate, right? And so maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was loneliness that she kept the bottle under her sink. Maybe it was some resentments, some anger over a sister or something that screwed her over or something, right? But I thought about that, and I thought, God, that's really a good description for emergencies. I like that. And so what happens is it's almost like we can't get enough. And some people come along and say, I don't like what it does to me. God, ish. I don't like that feeling of being out of control and stuff. Shit, I love it. I can't get enough. And then I can change around and find something else that can get me to where I want to be. I want to be here. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with wanting to be high? See, that's bad. You shouldn't want to be high. No. Then what do you want to be? Depressed? Right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a case of right or wrong here. But so I'll go through all kinds of means to get to get my supply to get me to be where I want to be. I will not spend money on something else when I could be spending money on booze or my drug of choice, whatever it is. When things were in the throes of being out of work and everything else, we started a little business called Liquor Audit and Control Company, and that way we could go around, catch bartenders when they were stealing, and drink for free and get paid for it. What an ingenious idea, huh? So we couldn't get enough to drink at home. We had to go out and catch bartenders when they were stealing to get enough money to drink more, right? And we could get paid for drinking. What an idea. No, don't anybody get that idea, please. But euphoria, it's almost like I could write euphoria way out here somewhere. It's like, that's where we want to be. Well, what happens in this is, let's say this is legally drunk and so forth. I pass over the line here a lot. So now when I'm using, I'm bouncing up to here, and what happens is what goes up must come down. Okay? It's just the rule of physics. What goes up must come down. So I'm going to be bouncing back down this way toward depression. Okay? And I'm bouncing up here and bouncing back down here. Well, I get way up here and I get way down here. Okay, now I get here, and let's say I was out Saturday night, got drunk. It's Sunday morning, and I'm depressed. Now I'm hungover and depressed. Things are not going good. And I've got a way out of the depression. I've got a way out. And what's that? It sure isn't go to an AA meeting, no, right? Okay? It's to use somewhere. Very dangerous. Now what I'm doing is using to medicate. I just want to get back to normal now. Or maybe I'm bouncing way up here somewhere, I don't know. But even if I get back to normal, by Monday morning I'm ready to go to work. Okay, this now, if it's a progressive disease, this isn't going to just stop now. You say, okay, well, that's what I'm doing. You know, that's all right. It continues on. And what happens is this normal, wherever it is on this plane, our normal mood is going to start to come this way. Little at a time, again, not enough to notice maybe, but now I'm not getting that high anymore. Where I used to be, I'm getting up in here somewhere, but I'm coming back down in here somewhere. And this continues to come down. Again, the key is not how long or how much or how often or why, it's just happening. And now I'm up to here and I'm back down to here, and this isn't going to quit. Unless I quit, unless I start doing something different. And when we talk about the Jellinek chart of using, it doesn't matter. This is like a question mark here, like being a little pregnant. It doesn't matter really how far down I've gone. What matters is that I've been there and that I've been in this progression. And so if my bottom is a high bottom, so what? It doesn't matter. All I got to do is stick around for a while and it will be a low bottom. So here we go down into here, and I slip into what I call a gigantic shit bag of emotions. And now I'm coming down into this shit bag. Okay, now what depression is really not a good word, because if you tell me you're depressed, I really don't know how you feel. Kind of an idea that you're depressed, right? There's a bunch of other stuff that goes into this shit bag of moods. I think I'll start it off with saying, well, what happens as we come down even more into here, and now what we do is we're using to get to a better place of the shit bag. So we're in the shit bag whether or not, us chemically dependent people, whether or not we're not using. So we're still in the shit bag. And that's where we live. And when I start using, all I'm doing now is to get the better, little different place of the shit bag. I'm crying in my beer a lot. I'm stoned, but I'm high, and I'm drunk, but I don't feel good. I don't feel good about it, and I'm not high anymore. And it's not, my lover let me down. My lover let me down. And that's what happens. And so, there's all kinds of moods that go on in here, lots of emotions and so forth that are going on as normal. Remember, this is normal now for me. Normal is not there anymore. And the number one feeling problem, I think, for most people, certainly not everyone, chemically dependent, is fear. Fear is in here. Fear of what? Look at it a little bit, especially as you consider the fourth step. Take the fear apart a little bit and look at it. Fear of what? Fear you won't like me? Yeah. I'm afraid you won't like me. Afraid of failure? Yeah. Therefore I won't take any risks. I'm afraid to fail, right? Okay, so that's going on. Afraid of dying. Oh, God. I think one reason why people like me that are using are afraid of dying is because we haven't lived yet. Afraid of dying because we haven't lived yet. And I think there's a meaning and purpose in all of our lives, and if we haven't lived yet, of course we're going to be afraid of dying. What other kind of fear? Afraid of what? Anybody? Pardon? Okay. Physical pain? Emotional pain? All right. Anybody else? What kind of... Lots of... Pardon?
Fear of missing being able to get some losing more.
Okay, yeah, afraid I won't get my supply, yeah. Fear is directly connected to so many other emotions. Can I be angry out of fear? Be angry out of fear? Yeah, yeah. And the fear of acceptance, fear about being rejected. Okay, that has a lot to do with family and our whole life experience. What else? What else goes in the shit bag now? Beside fear. There's 50 or 60 words here that will describe the kinds of things that are going on. Pardon? Anguish. All right. Yeah. Shame. There's a good one. I mean, it's not good. Shame is an emotion that... I'm going to put guilt right after shame, if you don't mind, because there's some differences here. See, as you know, we can act on our guilt. There's a positive side of that, because if we didn't have guilt, how would we, especially in our fourth step and so forth, how would we change? Because we don't have guilt, right? Shame is always internalized. You tell me, I get told as a kid growing up, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, you little bastard. What do you do with that? You draw it in and you're just ashamed. That's all. There's nowhere to go with that. We internalize the shame. The guilt we act on. Different. Definitely. Resentments. Jealousy. Help me out here. What else we got? We didn't say anger. Yeah, anger. Hurt. What else? Remorse. Self-pity. Wow. Low self-worth. I'll put that. Yeah, lust. Okay, we could go on and on with this in terms of what goes into the shit bag, and these are all connected somehow. They're all interrelated in there, and that's what happens. And for me, that's where I lived my life, is in the shit bag. Now, was I in touch with that? No. Macho, yeah. How you doing, Dennis? I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great, right? I'd give you some bullshit about myself. It wasn't true. I needed to do that. It's like, I'm going to talk about in relationships. We need to do certain things in order to somehow salvage some of this false self-worth and so forth. Now what happens is, it's not enough that I'm in the shitbag myself. What happens is, I hook, not intentionally. Again, I didn't start off when I was 16 years old saying, my goal in life is to be an alcoholic or chemically dependent and see how many people's lives I could screw up. But this is what happens. How can you live with me or know me as a friend or want to be a friend of mine or anything else without getting affected by my moods? You have to be a special kind of person to be around me and want to have a relationship with me as a friend, as a parent to child, or as a spouse, and not be hooked into this. So wherever we have fear, it's going to be transferred over to here. The kids, right? Yeah. If I see fear in my family growing up all the time, and I see resentments and I see prejudices and all kinds of opinions and stuff, of course I'm going to take that on. Of course I'm going to take it on. I grew up in an alcoholic home. I guess I'm not the only one in this room knows what it's like to grow up in an alcoholic home, to sit in a car and wait by the hour, to see the fights. Now there's different kind of destruction for the person living in an alcoholic home. In my case, it was verbal and physical. Our home was split up when I was 9 years old. I didn't see my brother for 18 years. 18 years. I got the shit kicked out of me about 2-3 times a week. That happens to be my story. Now, when I come out of an environment like that, I was adopted by an aunt and uncle when I was 9 years old, where do you think my normal was? I hadn't had a drink yet. I hadn't even had a drink yet. Where's my normal? It sure isn't where I have it on the board here. It's somewhere else, and I hadn't had a drink yet. My normal is down here somewhere to start with. I get hooked in. I remember a particular incident where somebody was very happy about what their husband was doing. How you doing? Great, isn't it wonderful what my husband's doing? And he was talking quite often about blowing somebody away and so forth. And how was your weekend? Real good, except I was looking for a shotgun. I was going to blow my father-in-law away. But other than that, it was a good weekend. And I was going to kill myself, too. Wow, that's heavy stuff, right? You know what happened? He'd been talking about that for years, drunk or sober. But his wife drove her car in the garage, turned the engine on, and killed herself. Why? See, he was talking about it, she did it. Never would have guessed it, right? Big, beautiful smile. How you doing? Fine, fine. Yeah. Codependency. I remember I was sober for a while and somebody starts talking about codependency, and I thought, what the hell is this now? Codependency. Well, I define codependency and I heard somebody say once that they thought for every chemically dependent person there was a codependent inside, and I don't think that's far from the truth. But I define codependency as a person that gets their positive or negative feelings based on what someone else is saying or doing. Think about it. Positive or negative feelings based on what someone else is saying or doing. Therefore, Judy, if I'm codependent on you and we're in a relationship, and you're up, how am I going to be? Up, right? Because you're up. My God, I can be up now because you're up. It's wonderful. I even had a pin one time that I don't know what happened to it. It said, "Are we having fun yet?" Right? Now that's a good pin for a codependent, right? What if you're down? What if you're depressed? How am I going to be? Yeah. You're in the shit bag. How am I going to be? I'm going to be in the shit bag. And not only am I going to be in the shit bag, but I'm going to be trying to figure out what I can do to get you out of the shit bag. And my life will be one of trying to figure out how I can get you up, because I can't be up unless you are, right? My God, you know what I do when I do that? Eventually, I lose my own identity. I don't know who the hell I am anymore. I'm so hooked into you. And it happens with parents and children and parents and spouses. It's not only in opposite sex relationships. It happened to me as a child, trying to get acceptance and watching out, not only for me, but for my brother and sister too, and protecting them. Therefore, that affects the normal to start with. There's all kinds of again, getting back to this, these are people that are hooked into me. Spouse, parents, boss. Can my boss get hooked in? Yeah. I don't want to fire you. Called me in and said, God, it's your 10-year anniversary. I got to fire you. Why? Why? I warned you 100 times about your drinking. God, I really like you, Dennis. I don't want to fire you, but I have to now. And I came home and said, that son of a bitch finally got me, right? The reason I couldn't work is the economy was bad or my boss was an asshole. Well, do you think my boss driving to work that morning was really enjoying his ride into work, thinking he had to fire me? We'd known each other for 10 years. Other people get hooked in, not just the family. Other people get hooked in. I have a very dear friend. We went to their house for Thanksgiving. She'd spent a long time, 2 days, getting ready for that Thanksgiving dinner. And her father was there. Chronic, late-stage guy. Mean guy. Real mean. Language around the kids and stuff. Terrible. Who's the center of attention? He is. He's the center of attention. With the language and everything. It was terrible. And she was so embarrassed. And they gave him a plate with mashed potatoes and turkey, and here, Pa, you got to eat something. He said, stick it up your ass, and he put his cigarette out in the middle of the mashed potatoes. A few people there laughed. They thought, God, look what he did now, right? She went upstairs and cried, and she wouldn't come down for an hour. And my wife went upstairs and assured her and got her to come downstairs again. How many kids do you think she had come home from school and play? Yeah, why not? Tough stuff. It's important to get a hold of that. It's important for me to get a hold of the effect I've had on other people, especially my kids. Because how am I going to change unless I can understand that kind of thing? How? In relationships with chemical dependency, let me draw these circles. Here's two people in a relationship, and they're kind of going the opposite directions, drifting further apart. Now, maybe with friends and so forth, we don't see our friends for a while, we're drifting further apart, and that's okay. But what about somebody we live with? Having positive, nurturing, intimate kind of relationships is a need we all have. And what if we're being cut off and deprived from that need? Drifting further apart. These people are going to split up or get divorced? Not necessarily. No. That's how they live. This is more common in chemical dependency or chemically dependent kind of relationships, codependency. These are two people, person one and person two again. Looks like one person almost, doesn't it? They're so close in their relationship, it's a smothering relationship. Just smothering. In other words, what are you going to do now? I want to be part of you. I want to be real close to you, all the time now, right? Let's not do anything by ourselves or anything here, Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Because I want to be part of that. A smothering kind of relationship. Maybe that's more common in chemical dependency. Somebody says, what our problem is? We need marriage counseling. That's what our problem is. Say, oh, okay, well, if either one of the two people or both of them are either chemically dependent and using or codependent and haven't dealt with it, all the marriage counseling in the world, what are we dealing with? A symptom and not a problem, maybe. Or maybe both are problems, but we need to take a look at the dependency first, don't we? Take a look at that, where that's at. So, in this kind of thing, there's trust issues. And not necessarily do I think my wife is having an affair. I don't mean necessarily that kind of trust, and that's true also. But the trust issues, do I trust you enough to tell you that I need you and I'm hurting? And what I need from you? Do I have that kind of trust? That's a different kind of trust. Now, having an affair, sure. When I'm using, I think my wife's having an affair, right? Don't have anything to base it on. My wife, I was sober 3 years, and she said, I'm going to go to treatment. I said, what the hell for? You don't need no treatment. Like I'm going to solve her problems for her, right? No, you don't need no treatment. Shit, we were drinking buddies. We'd go into blackouts together, had liquor audit and control company together. Team. right? She was going into treatment. Well, I only saw her drunk 3 times in 3 years. Therefore, she couldn't be an alcoholic, right? You know what? She was doing it for me. Isn't that wonderful? God, that's wonderful. That's love, isn't it? Yeah. She said, well, I'm going anyway. Goodbye. Now I'm pissed off, right? I'm pissed off now. She's doing something that she shouldn't be doing without my approval. And she was in there for 3 days and she didn't call me. 3 days. Now I'm really pissed off and I'm going right back into the shitbag again. And I'm sober and I'm in the shitbag, okay? And I laid there one night and I couldn't sleep and I'm angry and what's going on? And I called and I said, there's an emergency. My wife has got to call me. And she called and I said, you son of a bitch, is your finger broken or what? We're through, and I hung up on her. And the next night I brought flowers up there. See, my mood swings are all over the place again. And what's going on with me? Do I need help? Yeah, I need some help. Right? I need to get with somebody who can help me here. I'm going wacko, and I don't know what's happening. And I said, I got some flowers, and they said, oh, that's nice. And I said, I want to give her the flowers. He said, no, you can't do that. No. Now I'm pissed off again, right? I called and I said, I want to talk to my wife. That's when we could talk. And they said, oh, she isn't here. I said, well, where is she? She's at the bonfire. I said, bonfire? What bonfire? What's going on there? Well, there's a bonfire. Oh, right. I'm sober now. Put the kids in the car and drive around looking for a bonfire. What's going on? Okay? Anybody relate to that kind of thing? Right? When I was drinking, there was a guy across the street. Worked for the phone company, and he had this tremendous system set up in his basement. And that was a long time ago. Now I imagine you do it in a little tiny box or something, but he had the reel tape thing down there and everything. And he wanted to show that to me, and he said, I got the house wired, and I know whatever's going on in this house from the phone. So, the telephone, right? So as soon as she's on the phone, I'm on it, on this tape, right? I said, God, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And he said, you know, when I'm done with it, I can bring it over and set it up in your basement, too. I said, great, let's do it, right? Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, that sounds really good. I talked to somebody not long ago. They said, well, I can kind of relate to that because every time I got home, I pushed the redial number on the phone to see where the last call was made. Okay? How come? Why are we going through all that stuff? Well, I can tell you why I was going through it, and it's because I didn't love myself very much. Therefore, how could I expect my wife to love me if I didn't love myself very much? And if she didn't love me, what's she going to be doing? She's going to find somebody else, right? And it all came from me, that I didn't love myself very much. The trust. Different kind of relationship. Person 1, person 2 in the relationship, and all 3 can grow and change. It's kind of like watching the Waltons. Anybody watch the Waltons? I don't. Maybe it's a little too much for me. Goodnight John Boy and all that stuff, right? But it is possible in recovery to have relationships where both people can grow and change, not get in each other's way in terms of their own program. It's important. How can I be changing and doing all these things and everything else, and who I live with is staying in the same spot? Can't relate to it, can't understand it. Can't understand what I've been through or anything. That's tough. That's a tough situation. It's so much easier when both people are doing something. Going to their own meetings, whether it's Al-Anon or AA. This whole business on relationship, there's some real neat stuff done on this. I know for my wife and I, once I got sober, and once she got sober, we started going to a couples group in AA. God, we love those people. It was on a Friday night, and we'd have meetings that would last 3 hours or something. So how can anybody sit through a meeting that lasts 3 hours? We cried together, we laughed together, and then we went out afterwards and had pie and dessert. And then it was on a Friday night, we got in our car and drove all the way to northern Minnesota and wouldn't get in there till 3 in the morning. We did more communicating after one of those meetings and being with those people we did all week. Did we need it? Damn right. We needed that. Because our relationship would never be the same again. whether we split up or whether we didn't. And a lot of times somebody gets sober and gets straight and so forth, and the other person isn't coming along, and what happens is where they might have stayed together in this kind of relationship all their life, they split. In relationships, it's kind of like, to borrow an analogy that I've always liked, is the tennis match. You and I are playing tennis, and you hit the ball to me, and I don't hit the ball back. I stand here with my tennis racket like this, and the ball goes by, right? And what are you going to think when I don't hit the ball back? What? Maybe I didn't see the ball, right? Was it something? I just was looking at something else, and you're going to hit me another ball anyway, aren't you? Because we're playing the game, aren't we? So you hit another ball, and I watch it go by, right? Now what are you going to feel? Not think. What are you going to feel? You're going to be, you're going to have, you're going to be, say, what the hell's the matter with you? You're going to have some confusion why I wouldn't play the game, or be pissed off. I'm not trying, right? So we need to both play the game here. If only one person is playing, it gets pretty frustrating. Back in terms of normal relationships, what's normal in terms of our relationship? We can be satisfied in these kind of situations only, and there's no way that you can read about this and learn it or know it or listen to somebody like me and realize it or know it. The only way is to live it. And that's the only way to really know what it could be like. This normal, again, let me just talk about this once. If my normal is down to here to start with, I start using, I get some immediate payoff. What becomes very interesting, and in looking back at it, to get from this position of being in the shitbag to get here, in this position, over here, of natural highs, in relationships or otherwise, takes some doing. We need to unlearn the old stuff and learn the new stuff at the same time. And it ain't easy. I'm going to start to doubt that this is real. I can see some changes happening because for most of these things here, there's the other side of it, and I can see that changing, and I break through here, and I'm getting over to a position like here, and where I'm going to have the natural highs, and I doubt that. I think this is brainwashing, it's bullshit, it's not real. It ain't happening to me. And that takes some doing. To be able to accept the payoffs of being straight without doubting that. I was sober 3 months and somebody said, hang in there, Dennis, it gets better. And I didn't know what that meant. What the difference is when over here we anticipate or expect pain. Somebody said it earlier, pain. This is an expectation that I have, that I'm going to have pain. Now, you won't know it by talking to me, but deep down, I'm expecting the pain. Because I've had the pain, it's always been there, it's going to be there again. Over on this side, over here, I anticipate and start to expect the pleasure, and that's a whole different thing. When I anticipate or expect the pleasure rather than anticipating the pain, that ain't easy. Because I think, I'm not supposed to be feeling like this, right? Something's going on, this is strange. Right? It's too strange. And I get afraid of it or something. And that puts up a barrier to this change. And I don't know how to get through that. Yeah, I do. I do know how to get through it. That's, for me, to go to a lot of meetings. Because I couldn't stay straight or sober if I didn't see other people doing it. The people in AA literally had a way of telling me they loved me before I loved myself. And they kept saying it. Not exactly, I love you, Dennis. What they said, you want to go fishing with us this weekend? Huh? We're going to go to Rudolph's and we're going to have ribs after the meeting. How'd you like to join us? My wife and I go into a couples group, and they said, you know, we have a 500 club, and we're short one couple for Saturday night. Would you like to be there? Yeah. I was like I was 3 feet off the ground. Yeah. Shit, nobody invited us to be anywhere when we're both using. Think people invited us places? Jeez. Think people wanted to be around us? So what's happening as this becomes normal, over here, we're starting to get our needs met. And as it says in the big book, for some of us more quickly and for some of us more slowly. I don't know the answer to that. I do know the answer that if you hang in there and have open-mindedness, patience, and hang in there and work your program, whatever your program is, that this is what's going to happen in your life. You will certainly experience new normals. So what's normal now? If you do that, I guarantee you will not be normal in the future, because you'll have some new normals. Thanks.